In this series of videos, I'll provide students with suggestions for improving their case debating in the 2AC. This is the third video in the series. The first focused on strategy. The second explained signposting. Subsequent videos will provide specific tips about efficiency and how to practice. This video will focus on argumentation. Many tips you'll receive about case debating in the 2AC are about your technique, or the method you use to make your arguments and how you go about making them. Technique is very important, but even the most technically proficient 2AC case debater can't make up for a lack of quality content. To really be successful, you need to make good arguments. In this video, I'll explain what that means. The two most important principles to remember are refute, don't restate, and reasons, not claims. When debating the case in the 2AC, you need to answer the negative's arguments with reasons. This might seem obvious, but many students fall well short of this goal in their 2ACs. Instead of refuting opposing arguments, many 2As simply restate the positions their partners have already introduced in the 1AC. And instead of supporting their arguments with reasons, many 2As just state or restate claims. They tell the judge what they want the judge to believe, but not why they think the judge should believe it. I'll explain each of these principles in more detail. Refute, don't restate is the most important principle you can learn for 2AC case debating. It's essential for all speeches, but 2ACs on the case are particularly time-pressured. While debaters can sometimes get away with unnecessary repetition of earlier claims in other speeches, there simply isn't enough time to do this in the 2AC. If you restate, you're not refuting. If you're not refuting, you're losing. What do I mean by refute, don't restate? It might help to break this down into three ideas. First, don't repeat, respond. Second, don't comment, compare. And third, don't dodge, disprove. I'll explain each of these concepts. First, don't repeat, respond. The judge has already listened to the 1AC and 1NC. In the 2AC, they want to know what happens next. Given what you said in the 1AC and what the negative said in the 1NC, how will you respond? Why are the positions introduced in the 1AC right despite the negative stated objections? Repeating the 1AC claims doesn't answer this question. The judge already knows the 1AC's position. They also know the negative's initial response to it. What they're now wondering is, why should they still believe you? Remember what we said earlier will not convince them. Or to be more direct, saying the 1AC tags a second time doesn't make them any better or more believable. To successfully refute opposing arguments, you need to explicitly respond to them. Second, don't comment, compare. To refute an opposing argument, you can't just suggest that it's wrong, or just suggest that your argument is right. You must compare. Why is your argument more right than their argument? To the extent that their argument has some merit, why is your argument nonetheless still true? Many 2ACs on the case are nothing more than a series of comments. Often these comments are about the negative's arguments. They didn't explain why, their evidence is too old, they didn't read evidence about this, etc. Sometimes these comments are about the 1AC's arguments. Usually this is some form of, our evidence is really good. But it's often just repeating the tagline of a card from the 1AC that seems relevant. The comment is a suggestion of an argument. Their argument isn't very good, so we must be right. Or, we have an answer to this in the 1AC, so we must be right. But so we must be right is only ever implicit. Instead, it's important to compare. Why is your position on this issue more right than their position? Why should the judge believe your team's position more than they believe the negative's position? Not their argument is bad or our argument is good, but our argument is better than their argument. Third, don't dodge, disprove. Many 2ACs on the case seem to think that the best approach is to dismiss the relevance of most or all negative arguments. A common phrase is, but this doesn't assume. But this doesn't assume something that happened, but this doesn't assume our plan, but this doesn't assume our evidence, etc. The implicit suggestion being made is that the negative's argument is irrelevant. It does not disprove the affirmative's position. However, the mere suggestion of irrelevance does not by itself disprove the negative's argument. For example, imagine the affirmative read a plan to legalize marijuana at the federal level. One of the advantages is about business confidence in the marijuana industry. The AF says that federal legalization is necessary for sustainable industry growth. One of the negative's case answers is a card that is tagged, "Legalization doesn't solve business confidence." But the card actually says that state legalization of marijuana creates uncertainty because of overlapping, contradictory state and federal laws. Instead of saying, "This evidence doesn't assume the plan's federal action," disprove the argument. Federal legalization solves business confidence by removing the overlapping, contradictory laws their evidence describes. The question the 2A should be asking themselves as they formulate their response is, how can I disprove this argument, not how can I avoid this argument? To disprove an argument requires explicit refutation. As previously discussed, it requires a comparative response. Negative arguments that are actually irrelevant should be easy to disprove. But instead of just pointing out what they do or don't assume, explain why the AF's position on the issue is more right than the negative's position, and support your claim with a reason. That brings me to the second most important principle for 2AC case debating: reasons, not claims. To debate case arguments effectively, you must respond to the reasons the negative provides to support their arguments, not just their tagline assertions. If you don't know the supporting reasoning for a 1NC argument, use the cross-examination to determine it. Answering a claim is nearly impossible if you don't understand the reasoning that is being used to support it. Similarly, your arguments need supporting reasoning. It can be helpful to think about the word because. Every claim that you make must be followed by because and at least one reason that your claim should be believed. If you don't have a reason, you don't have an argument. I'll further explain this concept with 3 related ideas. First, to prove claims, debate reasons. Second, to prove reasons, debate evidence. And third, to improve reasons, improve the 1AC. First, to prove claims, debate reasons. This concept is true of all debate speeches, but it's particularly important for the 2AC on the case. In this context, most of the claims you're trying to prove have already been established in the 1AC, so you rarely even need to restate them. On any given case argument, it's already well understood what the dispute is about. Is the harm a big deal or not? Are other factors more important than the plan or not? Does the plan solve the harm or not? Etc. You shouldn't spend time repeating those claims. You should only be debating the reasons that support them, your reasons and their reasons. Your mission is to prove why your reasoning is more right than their reasoning. If you do this successfully, you will have proven that your claims are more right than their claims. It might seem odd to say this, but debating at the level of your claim is actually the least effective way to prove that your claim is true. To win your claim, you need to debate at the level of the supporting reasoning. Put another way, good reasons can leave implicit the claim that they prove, but good claims can never leave implicit the reasoning that proves them. Once you understand and internalize this, your 2AC case debating will dramatically improve. So how do you prove reasons? In part, this requires logical analysis and smart comparisons. But fundamentally, it requires closely tethering your arguments to the evidence you've already introduced to support them. Instead of treating 1AC cards like game pieces that you move over a column into the 2AC, treat them like resources you can use to prove and disprove claims. Thought of in this way, a well-designed 1AC is a curated library of reasons. It's packed with grounding, the facts, opinions, data, anecdotes, examples, analogies, and other raw materials of argumentation. And it's filled with warrants, the way those raw materials fit together to prove the claims you've made in your 1AC. In the 2AC, your task is to pull the required resources from your library and apply them to refute the negative's arguments. This is more complicated than extend card A or cross-apply card B. It's taking the reasons from those cards and applying them to disprove the negative's responses. This is why I've often said that evidence comparison is argument comparison, and vice versa. Evidence is what you use to make your arguments. It's not, by itself, your argument. To prove reasons, debate the evidence. This leads me to my next point. As debaters shift from restating to refuting, and from debating claims to debating reasons, they'll start to figure out the strengths and weaknesses of their 1AC evidence. For skilled debaters, the best way to improve the 2AC on the case is often to improve the 1AC, by switching in a better card for a weaker one, by recrafting taglines or the sequence of a contention, by changing the way important cards are highlighted, or even by making more dramatic overhauls to the case's design and presentation. If there are cards in the 1AC that are rarely used by the 2AC, replace them. If there is an argument that you find difficult to disprove with 1AC evidence, add a card to the 1AC that addresses it. The purpose of the 1AC is to lay out the strongest possible case for the affirmative's position. But it's often not until the 2A tries to defend their case against the negative's responses that the meaning of strongest case possible becomes more clear. When you identify weaknesses in your position, make the necessary improvements to the 1AC. In this video, I've explained how to improve your 2AC case argumentation. Remember, the two most important principles are refute, don't restate, and reasons, not claims. These principles apply to all debate speeches, but they are particularly important for 2AC case debating. If you internalize these lessons, you'll see dramatic improvements in your debating. If you haven't done so already, I suggest that you watch the first two videos in this series about strategy and signposting. Subsequent videos will also address other specific issues, including efficiency and how to practice. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching.